So this is the way Bruce Springsteen entered my life for real. And then we said, well, okay, we're gonna have to get contracts together. We're gonna have to circulate these. So we're gonna have to go in and do these songs quick, which is what we did do. We made a little demo of them, even though they made a Hammond demo, which became the big thing because it was John. But that's how we started off with Bruce, and we were all blown away. I mean, like Bruce says about me, he says, "You were the first true believer, Mike."
Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to be here.
How you doing, man?
I'm fine. I'm well rested and looking forward to it.
In honor of you, I'm wearing a shot leather jacket, which I know you gave Springsteen yours to do the cover. Yeah, so that's my homage.
My question is, did you ever get it back from him?
No, he told me he gave it to a girl. So I said, that's a good answer. What are you going to say to that one?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. How long did he have it before he gave it to a girl, though? That's the question. Was it worth something when he did it, or was it still just like, hey, you're cool?
No, it was worth plenty. I didn't give it to the girl. But that's the way it is. You don't even think about things like that in those days. It was great. It was just great. He just looked at it one day, and I had it with me, and he says, "Who's that? What's that? Is that yours?" I said, "Yeah, it is mine." I said, "My mother bought it when I was 17. Robert Hall, I think, or something was where she bought it. For God's sake!"
Wow.
And Long Island. And he said, "Oh, well, can I try it on?" I said, "Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it'll fit, man. But you're so thin, and I was so thin at that age too." I said, "Who the hell knows? Go ahead, give it a shot." It's in it, man. It fits him like a glove. He said, "Oh, wow. Man, I love this. Can I have this? You bet. Go ahead, take it." Where am I going to that? I don't even know if I could have fit in it actually at the time.
Wow.
But actually, I actually could fit in it actually at that particular time. Yeah. We got lucky. He wanted to use it for the Born to Run photo shoot for the album shoot, and. We were all talking up in the office at 75 East 55th Street, and we were talking about, what the title of the album should be. Should be Jungle Land, should be Born to Run, Thunder Road. And we were going back and forth, and then he finally said, "I think it has to be Born to Run." And I said, "I think you're right." Okay, I mean, that was the first song we did. He and I produced that one, and that was the song that kind of led the other songs in the direction that the album was to end up going. Right. Thunder Road is a big pompous song. Jungle Land's a big pompous song. Night is another big pompous song. Backstreets is another big pompous song. And you have these big kind of productions. There was a few, Meeting Across the River, of course, wasn't that big a pompous song. Not Backstreets. Backstreets. What I'm thinking of.
That was it. Yeah.
I'm thinking another one. It'll come to me in a second. But most of these the songs were like pretty impressive songs, and I said to myself, well, let's see what he comes. Let's see what we come up with, because I just got a call from John Berg over at Columbia, and he wants me to come over and take a look at the artwork, and then I'll come back and bring it with me. Okay, he says, "Yeah, okay, wow. Go ahead. I'll stay here at the office." Blah blah blah. Okay, great. He could care less about going to Columbia. He'd rather be in the office there. It was a great office, good rock and roll office, right on 55th Street, just between Park and Madison. Nice building. In fact, Dylan's manager, Albert Grossman, was upstairs from us. That's where Dylan's offices were. I had no idea that Albert Grossman had offices in this building. It's funny that Bruce Springsteen was discovered by John Hammond Sr. and Bob Dylan was discovered by John Hammond Sr. at Columbia Records. And then, of course, I get offices right in the same building. I called my band the Balloon Farm. Albert Grossman had ownership in the Balloon Farm Club in the village at the time. And they even said that Dylan named the club the Balloon Farm. And of course, I had the hit with the Balloon Farm, as I said before, Question of Temperature on Lloyd Records.
Right.
There was all these cross currents with Dylan that I only realized, lately in the last couple of years. I've spent some time going back, and there was just one thing after another. It was very surprising to me, the coincidences. Anyway, let me get back to John Berg. I go over to John Berg's office. I walk in, and he's holding up the cover that you can see. There's Bruce Springsteen, in the jacket and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then he opens it further, and you realize that Bruce is actually leaning on somebody or something. And then you realize it's Clarence Clemens.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh my God, it's an Open Up album." And that's oh my God, that's great that it's Clarence that he's leaning on. Who could have picked that? He was beside himself, John Berg, because he said, "This is going to be, one of these albums is going to win all the the greatest album cover for that year or whatever."
Right.
Sure enough, it did, and I go back. I was running back.
Right.
I couldn't wait to show it to him. I showed it to him, and he was stunned by it.
Wow.
He looked at it and he said, "Oh, that is it. If that isn't it, nothing is it. That is it. Born to Run. Good God, that's it." And I said, "Well, Jesus, that isn't the greatest thing in the world to have that thing to bed. Now all we have to do is finish the damn album," which was no easy task. It was a very, very stressful kind of album and music making time period for all of us. But
was that album in particular more stressful than the other ones?
Oh, way more stressful, because we almost got dropped by Columbia Records between the second and the third album. The first two albums, Clive Davis was like our champion advocate at the label, and he was also responsible for the signing, not just John Hammond.
Right.
But John Hammond is the guy I went to first and heard Bruce Springsteen first, and was bowled over as much as I was bowled over. He was bowled over. Even after it was just it just seemed to be meant to be. It was extremely fast. I only had time to set up maybe one other label. I mean, they were on to us so fast. I didn't have a chance to even call other labels and try to get them into a bidding war. It was so fast. But we were, I wasn't going to, tempt the gods when Columbia Records calls and you got both Clive Davis and both John Hammond Sr. on your side. You want to make a deal. You're not going to be petulant and cute.
Right.
And so we did, and it was great. But Bruce Springsteen, when he first walked in to our offices, it was like it's November '71, and he had played two songs. He sat down on a piano bench, and in one of the offices. And he came up with a fellow by the name of Tinker, who was a friend of his and a sound man down there. And he was the one who I had a relationship with, because Tinker had another group that he worked with called Tumbleweed. They were like a Crosby, Stills, and Nash knockoff. And I loved them. And I took them over to Lieber and Stoller, the guys that wrote Jailhouse Rock and, a million hits.
Oh, wow.
And they loved them too. And they wanted me to go to Starday King Records in Nashville and cut them, which I did.
Wow.
And with Weldon Myrick on pedal steel guitar, and he was the one who was the pedal steel guitar player for Neil Young on the Harvest album. And so he'd be searching for a heart of gold. The pedal steel guitar in there is Weldon Myrick. And in any case, I came back, and it never worked out with Lieber and Stoller, because they had partnership fights and everything else. But to get back to Bruce, I said to Bruce after the two songs, they were lyrically nothing to write mother about. he sang them with great intensity. In fact, the intensity was almost too much for the value of the song.
Wow.
He was better than the song, and so when he finished them, he said, "Well, that's it." And I said, "Well," I said, "that's not going to be enough. I mean, you're going to have to do better songs than this." And he said, "Oh, don't worry, I've got plenty of songs, and I'll have more songs when I go back to what was it, San Mateo, California." I think his parents lived there at that time, and he returned to San Mateo, and he said he's going to write songs there, and he'd come back. And and I said, the door's always open. You come back. I said, but there's nothing here that would knock me out. So and you're gonna have a lot more songs. You're gonna have a dozen songs, 15, 16 songs to go in and do your first album, not two.
Right.
And he understood that. But it was funny when at a certain point in the song, one of the songs, there's a song about a deaf, dumb, and blind girl. He said something about dancing to a silent band, and I thought that was kind of weird and odd. And then all of a sudden, I also had the confusion of hearing a voice in my own head say, "This kid's a superstar."
Wow.
Actually said those words, and it was like I dismissed it right away because I said, I'm not a guy given to flights of fancy and hearing voices, and that's not my thing.
Right.
So I dismissed it, and then a couple of months later, in February, he came back. I didn't even remember his name when the girl said, "Hey, there's a Bruce Springsteen here to see." I said, "I don't know any Bruce Springsteen." I said, "It must be a mistake. It must be somebody else." And then he kept going on. Finally, Bruce had to say, "It's the guy with tell Mike it's the guy with Tinker who came up with Tinker." When he said Tinker, then of course I remembered who it was. I said, "You got those songs?" He said, "I got those songs." I said, "Come on up today. Anytime after 5, we're here." He comes up and he starts playing songs. First song he played blew me right out the door.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was "If I Was the Priest." It was the first song he played for John Hammond too, and it blew John Hammond right out the door too.
Wow.
And then he does this bus stop in Saint City, and it was like, my God, I had him repeat the lyrics in Saint City, with my black jacket and hair slick sweet, silver star studs on my duds, just like a Harley in heat. I made him sing that line again because I was so impressed with a Harley in heat.
Right.
I said that's a very cool way to put it.
Yeah.
And I said, this guy is like killing me. I don't know what to make of this. And he said maybe 5 or 6 songs altogether. And I was there with my partner at the time, Jimmy Creticus. And I said, "Well, Jimmy, what do you think?" He says, "I think he's absolutely great."
Wow.
And me too. And then there was Bob Spitz, who's an author himself. He wrote the book on the Beatles and Bob Dylan. Very, 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 literate books for rock and roll. And I asked Bobby, "What do you think?" He says he was just stunned. He was just stunned by it. He just said, "He's great. He's super great." So this is the way Bruce Springsteen entered my life for real. And then we said, "Well, okay, we're gonna have to get contracts together. We're gonna have to circulate these. So we're gonna have to go in and do these songs quick, which is what we did do. We made a little demo of them, even though they made a Hammond demo, which became the big thing because it was John. But that's how we started off with Bruce, and we were all blown away. I mean, like Bruce says about me. He says, "You were the first true believer, Mike," and
Wow.
and that's nice to know that, because look what he became. I mean, it was like I could point to this guy and not be embarrassed.
Right.
I mean, it was a great start of a relationship. In fact, I said to him after we signed publishing contracts and production contracts, he said, "I said, who do you want to manage you?" I said, John Shears out there, and a bunch of other people, that I knew at the time were available. And he said, "No, why don't you do it?" I said, "What do you mean? Why? I don't know the first thing about it. I'm like a writer, a producer, a publisher, a singer. I'm just out of bands myself. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not a manager. I don't know anything about that." He said, why don't you do it? I said, I just told you why I shouldn't do it. I don't know anything. You want a guy that doesn't know anything handling it? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
He said, Mike, he says, it can't be that difficult. I said, it probably isn't, but it's like kind of strange. I never gave it a thought in my life. He said, well, give it a thought and let me know that you want to do it. I said, well, okay, I'll give it some thought, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, listen, this is the last time, I'm going to say I want to do it, even though I really don't want to do it. I'd rather somebody else who's competent to do it. And I can just focus on, your records and your songs and blah, 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 and getting you a record deal.
Mm.
No, he said, Mike, no. I want you to be the guy. That's why that contract was signed months later.
Wow.
It wasn't even signed.
That's incredible. I mean, do you think it was more because I kind of understand that to an extent where you want somebody you trust, even if they don't know maybe necessarily like they're not that confident in doing the managerial part, but you'd still rather it's still almost better to have somebody that you trust kind of guiding your career.
Well, that's absolutely true. Okay, that's for sure true. But I it was funny because I didn't know that he had a real band together that he was thinking about using on the first album. And all those band members were like neighbors and people he knew all his life growing up. And so I think it was like that kind of thinking, let's make it a family thing. But, I don't want outsiders. I don't want strangers that I don't know and I can't trust them and blah, 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 blah. So that was kind of the way he looked at it. And I didn't realize that until really the band members started to come aboard.
Yeah.
And, and Steve Van Zandt could have come aboard. He just didn't make it. He didn't make the cut at that point in time. He made it just before we released Born to Run.
Right.
And that was the one to catch. If you had to catch one, that's the one to catch.
Yeah.
But Steve Van Zandt, a guy that I didn't realize was as good a musician as he turned out to be, but he had an enormous amount of songs to rehearse and learn for the Born to Run tour, because he had to learn the first two albums and then Born to Run, obviously. And then he had to learn all the songs that Bruce plays live. Bruce is like up to 400 or 500 songs that he can play. There is no other band in the world that can come remotely near that. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I played in bands all my life. Maybe if you had all the songs I knew at the time, maybe it came out to over 150 songs. And that's me playing years and years and years in New York City with a lot of different bands. And that's all I knew. I didn't know anywhere near 400 or 500 songs. Ridiculous. And that's what Bruce is. He's ridiculous. I mean, he's out there for 4 hours, 4.5 hours, or 4 hours on stage, playing his heart out. I mean, I got a dose of it when he played The Bottom Line. Okay? I'm sitting in the audience with Bette Midler, Paul Simon.
Wow.
One with the Jake Giles band's leader. I forget the guy's name.
Oh,
Peter Wolf.
Yeah.
Peter Wolf and Faye Dunaway. They were at the table.
Wow.
So this is The Bottom Line, and the tables are as narrow as they come, and they've got these little Cinzano, cigarette, ashtrays on them, and everybody's drinking, and their drinks are on the tables too. Bruce jumps off the table onto one of those tables, right? And they're all linked up all the way like to the back of the club, and people are sitting on both sides of those tables. He dances his way, God knows how, he dances his way down to where we're sitting, right? And he drops himself on my lap. And the sweat in his jeans went through into my jeans, into my flesh. That's how heavy he was sweating. Wow. That's what a show he puts on. And that was my first real confrontation with just what he actually does. Even though I'm there night after night, I was doing sound and lights, okay?
Right.
It's not like I didn't know what I was doing there. I was sound and lights, and he loved the fact that I knew the sound and lights and would play the piano before Davey Sanchez even got there, and I'd have to make sure that piano was in tune. And I can tell whether the piano's in tune or not in tune. There weren't too many producers. Maybe it was Eddie Offord that did it with Yes. He was their producer, and he actually went on tour. But Jimmy and I used to swap back and forth, sound and lights, until we got Mark Brickman, who was a genius of lights and ended up with Pink Floyd. doing all their lights for years. So that was a. But in any case, that's how we got started with Bruce, and that's how I learned to respect the fact that we had to drive to dates. Sometimes I was on the road. One weekend I didn't sleep for 69 hours or something like that. 69 hours before I went to bed. 3 days in a row. Boom, boom, boom. And the reason was he was putting his life and his heart on the line, and I felt obligated to do the same.
Sure.
And that's where it was at. It was like,
and again, that's probably why he wanted you to be his manager in the beginning, because he knew he'd get whatever he was putting in, you would also put in the same.
Yeah, I think he had a sense of that, and he has the dedication, and he knew, like he says, first disciple. That's what he always says. And it's nice to hear, but the reason people say, "Hey, you're the guy that discovered Bruce Springsteen," I said, "Well, I didn't discover him, so to speak. Like I found him in a club somewhere, and I said, Hey, kid, you want to do blah 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 blah." It wasn't quite like that, but I got him the audition at Columbia Records with John Hammond Sr. Okay, that was very important. Then he got signed to Columbia Records. Then I got him signed to the William Morris Endeavor Agency, okay? And so he could finally get out there and tour.
Right.
And it was all those kind of things that I did that made me really the guy that discovered Bruce Springsteen. I was the first guy to really do the things to get him from the small pond to the big pond.
Right. Well, let me ask you this now. Getting guys from the small pond to the big pond, because you just said you got him Columbia Records and the other stuff. How do you go about how did you make those contacts at that time, or the connection at the time? Because apparently, you were their go-to guy. Like they trusted you to deliver somebody to them that you knew. So how did you build those relationships?
Well, I had the relationship with certainly like guys like Doug Morris at Lowry Records, Hugo and Luigi, who started me in the business. Those guys, Can't Help Falling in Love for Elvis. They produced every Sam Cooke record, every one. Every one of them. You just start singing them. Cupid, all the songs that he did them all. They did them all.
Wow.
And I knew Clive. Okay. I knew. I didn't really know Herb Alpert, but I knew his partner Jerry Moss at A&M Records, and I knew a few people at Elektra Records. So. I had those connections, and that's all there is to it. And I had other even agency connections other than William Morris. But I said, let's start. I went to Columbia. That's the top record label at the time. William Morris was the top agency, absolutely, at the time.
Right.
And I got him signed to both. And those were good connections there that worked to inure to Bruce's and my benefit thereafter.
Did you build those connections during your songwriting career with Wes Farrell? You co-wrote a lot of songs with Wes, right? For
yes, I did. What was so funny is, that's another one of the oddities in my life. I'm on stage playing songs like, Hang On Sloopy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wes wrote that.
Yeah.
He wrote that song.
Yeah.
With Burt Burns. But, who's to think? And I ended up getting to know Burt Burns when he owned Bang Records, and he had Van Morrison and Neil Diamond on the label,
right?
And I used to bring over charts that they want, especially that song "Girl, You'll Be a Woman" song. That was a song. When I walked in, Neil Diamond was having an argument with Burt Burns. He didn't want the strings, like Paul McCartney didn't like the strings that Phil Spector put on, the Long and Winding Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a similar situation. I said, I don't know what the heck Neil's, yelling about. I love it. Bang, dang, dang. And they had a great little riff in there, and those strings are perfect in that song. You know what I mean? And Burt was right about that one. And so was Phil. I think that Paul McCartney was wrong about the Long and Winding Road, too.
Really?
So we didn't have those 10, 10, 10, 10. I mean, it was the drummer, I think, of those strings that made that song what it was. Great song.
I got a question for you about Hang On Sloopy that you might not know, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I have a version of that song that I ripped off the internet back in the Napster days, which I don't think I get sued for that anymore. But, when I was in high school, I downloaded that song, and there's a third verse on it that they don't play on the radio, that I haven't heard on any albums.
Wow.
Why did they get rid of the do you know about it?
No, I don't know about it. I mean, the closest I really came to, knowing anything about it was Rick Derringer, who was in the McCoys, had sung "Hang On Sloopy." Wes said, "Mike, go over and see what they're doing for the follow-up record to Hang On Sloopy. Go over there and introduce yourself to the band and tell them I sent you over there to make sure that they got their nose to the grindstone." I didn't know what to expect. I go over to the rehearsal hall. There's Rick Derringer, and he seems to be the one showing everybody what to do. And he asked me, what I was doing there, and I said, "Well, after seeing you, I actually don't have much to do here at all." I said, "You seem to have things well in hand."
Wow.
So, I'll just sit around here just because I got nothing else to do now. So I did. So I sat around and they went through, a bunch of things. And when the rehearsal ended, Rick said, "Yay, why don't you come over, Mike, I'm going over to see my manager, Steve, I forget his name, Steve something, Steve. Oh man, Steve. He also managed the Winter Brothers, Edgar and Johnny, and Steve. He had the Scene. That was the name of his club in Manhattan. He actually owned the Scene, and we went over to see his manager, who I did end up seeing. But when I walked in the door to the club, first time I ever heard Jimi Hendrix sing, and obviously play Purple Haze. Wow. And I just died when he said, "Excuse me while I kiss the sky." These speakers were so gigantic. When I walked in that room, I said, "Who's this guy?" He said, "Man," he says, "that's Jimi Hendrix." I said, "Jimi Hendrix? Wow, man, I can't believe it." I actually did meet Jimmy. Actually, he was trying to get out of the draft, and so was I. We went to the same lawyer. Can you imagine? That's where we met. Very, very,
wow.
Low-key guy. Very nice, sweetheart of a guy, actually.
How did you guys wind up getting out of the draft?
Well, I ended up going into the Marines, so Mikey didn't get out of the draft.
Okay.
Oh, I got out of the Army, and the Army was going to have me in 2 weeks, go to wherever I had to go for basic training. And I said, "Oh man, I got to do something." So I was doing things with lawyers, and nothing was working. My old man had no connections with that end of it, but he did know some people who were big time people, but he didn't use them at that time. I think he thought that it would be good for me, to go into the Army.
Right.
And my sister said, "Hey, they have some openings." My boyfriend goes to he went out there, and he was a Marine, and he says there's some openings out in Huntington at the Marine Corps Reserve Unit. So I said, "Reserves? I didn't know the Marines even had reserves." I said, "Okay." So I'll volunteer to only go in for 6 months, and then I come back on the streets and have to make a monthly meeting or whatever the hell it is, and I'll do that if I get lucky. So I went out there. I spoke to this guy. He said, yeah. Don't worry about a thing. Don't worry about the Army. Don't worry about the Army. As soon as I stamp this envelope with UMC, that's it. You will never hear from them ever again.
Wow.
I said, "Well, okay." I signed on the dotted line, stamped that folder, never heard from those guys ever. Not a notice by mistake or accident. Somehow they just took care of it. 1, 2, 3. And that was it. And I was on my way to Paris Island. That was an extraordinary experience for me, actually, the Marines, because here I am, like a songwriter, producer, wussy kind of guy. What the hell? I'm not looking to kill Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, or the Viet Minh. I'm looking to go write songs and rehearse with bands.
Right.
And here I am on my way to Paris Island. And man, when I got to Paris Island, man, that was the real thing, man. That was the real thing. And when my senior drill instructor was a guy by the name of Gunny Spence. Okay. Ooh. Now, was that a tough name?
That's a real tough name.
He was stripped. He had gotten stripes all up his arms, and he would get in fights, and they would bust him. keep busting him, and he would keep getting medals because he was in Bella Wood in World War II. He was he was in the Korean conflict. He was in the Vietnamese War. So this is a one tough guy, all Marine Navy boxer for 2 years. I mean, a tough guy. Like he used to say to us, he says, if you want to hit me, make sure it counts, that I never see it coming. Because if I get up, it'd be nothing left of you. So that's how he'd say that in front. He'd be in the face of 110 guys, tough guys too, not just little guys like me, man. They were tough guys. I ended up being the platoon scribe because my college ID fell on the floor, and he said, "Did you graduate, boy?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Next time you answer me, you say yes, sir, or I'm going to beat on you. You're my scribe. You're my scribe." The minute he said that, I said, "Oh my God!" My father told me to remain anonymous. What the hell? The first day I'm there, I'm already the scribe. But it got me out of a lot of duty because there's one thing that Gunny Spence was frightened to death of, and that was third grade math. That's it. He was frightened to death of that. Not the Viet Cong, not the Chinese communists. No way.
Just math.
This guy shot it at his own foot in a foxhole to see if he was still alive during the Korean conflict.
Holy
it was
shit.
so cold. It was so cold he got delusional and thought that he had passed away. And he figured in his delusional mind that if he shot himself and felt the pain of the bullet in his foot in the foxhole, that he was still alive. If he couldn't feel it, he would know he was dead. Meanwhile, he got hit over the head by his superior officer, who heard him shoot at his foot, and he was shaking so much he couldn't even hit his own foot. It's like just shaking.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And that's an absolute true story. When that guy told me that story, I knew that was true. That's the kind of guy. And it's like when you're in the Marines, you don't realize kind of where this is at. Like, for instance, I'll make these short. I was one day we said, "Oh, we're going to go to the pool. We're going to learn how to swim." Well, I was already a lifeguard, so I didn't have to know how to swim. I was fine. So I go over there, and all the advanced swimmers, about 10 of us out of 110. Most of these other guys, these Southern guys, don't know how to swim. White, blacks, don't matter. They don't know how to swim. So there's a few of us Northern guys, maybe 10 of us. We go in a separate pool. This is a gigantic pool that they're in. And a Navy SEAL comes over, and he says, "I'm going to show you how to drown proof." And they suit us up with a load of like rifles and put them on us and get us in these heavy, wet, outfits. And so, and they dump us into the water.
Wow.
And they tell us how to drown proof. And we say, "Yeah, okay, we know how to drown proof." Well, I was hardly listening. I wasn't even paying attention. I said, "What the hell? I can float in this stupid pool for an hour and 10 minutes. What are you kidding?"
Right.
So I jump in the pool, and in no time at all, I'm drowning. They have to put poles in that I can grab a hold of to pull me out.
Oh my
And then
God.
the senior drill instructor comes around, and he sees us being pulled out. He knows we failed, and he says, "Remember, I'm going to beat on you, boy, if you don't listen to this guy." So that focused me real quickly. Right. And I listened to this guy exactly how to do it, how to take the breath and everything like that. I was in that pool for an hour and a half, floating.
Wow.
After that, an hour and a half. And like I always say, if somebody throws me off a boat and it's not in frigid water, I can last for 2 or 3 days.
Holy shit.
2 or 3 days, I can last that long. I know how to drown proof. Once you know how to drown proof, you know how to do it. It's simple enough. Especially salt water, it's even more buoyant than pool water.
Holy shit.
And then one of the other two little stories are very simple. One was I actually saw a UFO on the base.
We love these stories.
Can you imagine? It was after evening chow. It was a January night. The sky was black, no moon, all stars. Beautiful, beautiful winter night. January 6th or 7th, something like that, in Camp Pendleton, California, down near San Diego, Oceanside. And a bunch of black dudes are in front of me and my buddy from New York, and they're looking into the western sky.
Right.
And we come out of the chow hall. And then there's like 15 and 20 and 30 of us. We're all looking at this a golden self-illuminating object, like an egg. It's like an egg, and it's coming down. No sound, no helicopter wings, no wings at all, nothing. Then it stops in midair. It stops in midair. I'm watching this thing, and it just stops in midair. No sound, no nothing. Then it jettisons some kind of aqua smoke against that black sky in an irregular figure, and then like a balloon, like when you let it go and when the air comes out of a balloon, it goes
Right.
and disappears into a point. I said to myself, what in the hell was that? And I had been studying UFOs and things like that. And my son and I have discussed it since. And I said, did we have enough smarts from Roswell to recreate our own UFO by 1967, which was where I was? That's where I was in the Marines at that particular time.
Wow.
And we said, I don't know. But I knew that those German scientists that we took in Operation Paperclip after World War II was over, those guys were at the Roswell site before the military got there. Only those guys, Werner von Braun and Hermann Oberth, those guys all were there, and they also say that Hans Kammler, an SS general, discovered a UFO, and they reverse engineered it they found it in the Black Forest in Germany in 1936. So the Germans were actually operating for a much longer period of time to be able to reverse engineer. So they could have. It's a possibility. In any case, who knows what the heck, what that was all about.
Wow.
But anyway, I saw it. That's an absolute. I never saw one ever again. Never saw one before. But very, very interesting.
I'm dying to see one. I haven't seen one. We have a couple guests who've talked about.
Yeah. Ed Asner actually told us about one in New Jersey at Fort Monmouth.
Yeah. Ed Asner said he saw one in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey.
Yeah, that's and it's funny. It's a sort of a segue, a perfect segue. I've also finished a musical that is it's about it's called Stage Door Johnny. It's about nobody wants to be Stage Door Johnny in their own life. They got to be at center stage, just like Bruce. We had lunch one time, and he said, "Mike, where am I on Saturday night?" He just blurted it out. And I said, "Center stage somewhere in the world." He says, "That's right. That's right. That's exactly right." And he says, "That's my commitment," and it is his commitment.
Yeah.
And so I figured I'd write this thing about the millennials and us classic rockers, because obviously us classic rockers hate everything that the millennials have been churning out because it just isn't there. It doesn't groove. It doesn't rock. There's no riffs. There's no interesting lyrics. There's no color. There's no differentiation between their notion of Pink Floyd and Bruce Springsteen and,
right,
whoever else you want us to have. I mean, there's so many greats, the Beatles, the Stones, the Moody Blues. I mean, there's so many great songs.
Yeah.
And you think of, Nights in White Satin.
Sure.
I mean, what a monstrous song that is compared to anything. And then you just say, well, I guess we're in the entertainment business, even though it doesn't entertain me because, I just sit there and I just, okay, everybody's in pretty colorful sequined outfits and everybody looks great, but everything just is all dressed up with no place to go.
Yeah, I know it's weird. I think the guy from oh my god, this is Steve Miller Band, who's the lead singer's name. I was listening to him do an interview, I think on Sirius, and he basically was like, yeah, I can't. In the 80s, he was like, every band you could tell apart because of their outfits, what they wore, what they sounded like. Yeah.
Yep.
And he goes, now you can't tell the difference between the people playing the music and the roadies.
That's right.
Because they all look the fucking same.
Everything is the same. It's exactly correct.
But you know what? Have you ever heard of a band called Wolf Alice?
Wolf Alice?
Yeah.
No.
I think you would really, really love them. They are they're not like, they haven't done like the the award show shit or anything, like, you know what I mean? Like they're not but they're amazing. Right. And the lead singer is her name is Ellie Rossell, and they're British. But they've got this great fucking sound. It's very rock and roll. But it's all
Really?
kind of like everything's kind of mixed in. Like it's a little bit of indie music, a little bit of pop, but also like a hardcore. Like a lot of their album, like this one song by them called "Smile" is a really great rock song.
Oh,
But I know what you mean though, because a lot of what gets attention and what makes it onto the radio is that very homogenous kind of, one hit wonder shit, that they're not
yeah,
making
sure,
full albums, but Wolf Alice makes, I very rarely listen to full albums anymore because they just don't make them well.
sure.
But their albums, I'm telling you, from beginning to end, have this, same thing with almost like a Springsteen thing where there's an epic story if it's beginning to end when you listen
Right.
together. Same thing with a couple other bands. I try to have bands like that on the show too, because I feel like, there isn't a lot of that anymore, but there's another band out of Australia called Middle Kids, and same kind of a thing. Milo Green, like they're all really, really great, but I know what you mean, because it is kind of whatever gets nominated for shit now is nothing to, it's all spectacle.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. When I think of Bruce Springsteen dying at the end of Jungle Land,
Yeah.
it meant so much to him that he had to die on stage. So
Right.
when I first saw that, I was just blown away. I just I didn't know we could go any higher, and Bruce takes it another step higher. He shows you a deeper side of him. I mean, in the song's deep enough without dying at the end, but then he goes ahead and dies at the end, and
Right.
it's just, I just said, I can't believe it. I mean, it's like James Dean on stage, Chuck Berry and James Dean colliding, and God Almighty. I mean, this is really fun. This is really
Yeah.
different, and so I think I do a musical based upon the millennials and some classic rock people, and they of course clash heads
Right.
and there's two women in the musical, and they're females, and they do great songs, and they
Nice.
do really hot stuff. I mean, I put almost 15 years into this thing. It's not something
Wow.
that you knock out in a week. And
Sure.
still, we're working on the book and getting the thing right. And I think we're going to have to try to make it into a motion picture first. So if any producers and directors are out there, go to my website at mikeappel.com. Okay.
Nice.
I like to talk to you because I want to do this, and you won't be disappointed. That's for sure. Because I almost got this on Broadway. I have one of the
Wow.
top lead investors who has 3 shows right now on Broadway,
Mhm.
and he loved the damn thing. And what happened was the pandemic.
Sure.
And the pandemic
Wow.
is still there. I mean, he's still struggling, with what.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just he's not there. They're taking nights off, and then they can come back, and then they work a few nights, and then they take another night off because of COVID's concerns with somebody who got sick in the cast or whatever. So that's still very much in their in their world still.
I wish
they
the artist
haven't
community
shed that
would.
snake skin yet. No,
Yeah.
but
I would.
in the motion picture world, Netflix is still fine.
Oh, I know.
Next.
I know.
They're
I
not
wish
worried
the.
about night after night after night after night touring, and they're not worried about any of that.
No, I know.
You know?
Exactly. It is
Yeah.
kind of a bummer, and I kind of wish the artist community would stick together a little bit more and put pressure on the government, either local or otherwise, to really kind of do something, because we're dying not being able
Oh
to
yeah.
tour.
Oh yeah. Oh no. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And then
Ooh.
of course, I
is it?
had. What's
No,
that?
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh.
No, and I also got involved in metaphysics. Well, in 1980, so it was years and years and years and years ago.
Right.
And I got involved in it because 2 people separately thought I was like that I was in a depressed state, which I probably was. But
Wow.
I wasn't doing rock and roll anymore. It didn't appeal to me anymore. I didn't want to do anything anymore with rock. I had after Bruce, it was like there was just a lull, a lull, and I just wasn't going to just jump in and do something.
Did it exhaust? Did the whole falling out thing, and then the producing all those albums and being on the road and staying up? Did it just kind of exhaust you in general, or was it?
Well, I had to come to terms with being without Bruce eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I kind of knew that. It was always like rattling around in my head. Of course, this is Bruce's baby. not yours.
Right.
You're there as a helping hand, and that's what your job is, Mike. So don't cross that line and kid yourself. Okay, this is all about him, and it is all about him, and that's where you gotta, like, if you can't do that, or if your opinion clashes with his for some reason, you can't have shouting matches. You'll never have any kind of a relationship with the guy. You'll
Right.
never have any length of relationship, and so maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you got to do it. Maybe can you do it yourself, Mike? I mean, you used to write songs. Not that the writing for the Partridge Family is exactly what I consider songs, but the fact is, you used to do that. I mean, at least that's a start, Mike. You can start there.
Right.
You've been around Bruce, or you know how good he is and how good a lyricist he is. So you have a criteria and a bar.
Mhm.
So why don't you get started? And so I did sort of slip away, and I just started to write, and then I didn't realize that I actually had it in me, and that I was more artistic than I ever gave myself credit for. And
Nice.
it's because I never worked at it long enough. I got cut off.
Sure.
In fact, speaking of Doug Morris, he was about to start a record label called Big Tree, and he was going to have me as like a Neil Diamond kind of guy, because he loved all my songs.
Mhm.
And so he and I had like this verbal agreement that I would be on the label, which I actually eventually did for one record. Meanwhile, while I did that, I had discovered Bruce, and I went into and I ran into Doug Morris at the Waldorf Astoria for Bruce's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I go into the men's room, and he says, "Hey, Mike." I said, "Hey, Doug, how you doing?" I said, "We standing there at adjoining urinals," and and he says, "I can always remember, Mike. I never forgot when you came into my office that day, and you told me you discovered somebody brand new, and that you didn't want to be on the label, and you didn't want anything to do with your own career." And he says, "I always remember asking you, well, who the hell's this guy that took you by storm?" And you just said, "His name is Bruce Springsteen." And he says, "I'll never forget that, Mike." He says,
Wow.
He went away, and here we are talking, and he's being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you and I are standing here. We're both here. We've both been invited separately. You know what I mean?
Right.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was just one of those things. I haven't seen Doug in a long time, but he's still doing it.
You got to reconnect, man. This is the time to reconnect with people that you haven't seen in a long time too. Because I mean, I feel like this thing slowed everybody down a little bit, and now
time to just go forward. You just can't allow it to take over and quarantine your life.
Right?
You can't quarantine your life away. So anyway, I got involved in metaphysics, and I have a new book, One Man's Truth.
Oh,
and
wow!
It's sort of a culmination of a load of esoteric sources. Of great knowledge. I didn't know there was such a knowledge out here like this available to me and to anybody else. It's not like Michael. I know secrets, but there are certainly loads of things that are available to the general public.
Right. I'm not going to lie to you. You said esoteric sauces, and the Italian in me got really hungry. I was like, what kind of sauce is that? Hang on a second. I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, that's right. It's when she has a Wulia. She has a Wulia for food. You forget about it. You gotta pull over and go to some place to eat.
Right.
Italians are a breed apart. They are, when it comes to food, they really are.
Yep.
I
hear you, man. But that's awesome. So you have a book on metaphysics. And you got into it in the 80s, you said?
Well, I got into it in the 80s. Yes, I did. I mean, just great little things like this. Although the slaughterhouse is well concealed, there is complicity. And it means basically, if you're sitting in the restaurant and eating food, slaughtered food, hey, you're just like the guy who slaughtered it out in Pennsylvania or New Jersey.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just things like that, that are so important, and that people don't, it's not what I say that's important. It's only what you hear. And it's so true. When you're sitting there and some teacher's teaching, one person gets something out of the conversation, another guy gets a little something else out of it. It's what matters to you.
Right.
It's important when that guy who's ever teaching you. And that's another thing. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson even says, I can't teach a man anything. I can only provoke him. And that's true.
Yep.
And
Love Emerson.
Me too. Oh, so many of his things are so beautiful. The sacrifice of a public interest to a private one bears the eternal stamp of vice. In other words, big business and corporations, when the government, panders to them rather than, the public, it's like, hey, I thought we elected you guys, not this corporation,
dude.
So,
tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go there, but we'll be here for the rest of our lives. So,
no, I feel you, man.
Down into that rabbit hole, that pit, because that's a dark pit.
That's a good segue, though, too. Though when Springsteen started to get heavy into the political stuff, did you kind of wish you were still around and involved? Because you are a bit of a political guy, a little bit now, right?
Well,
I mean, we all have to be to a certain extent, but when he started to, when he started to develop those albums and kind of his songs kind of took a more point of view, did you feel like oh, I've got some shit I could have said too, or no? No, I didn't have that sense of it, because I didn't recognize myself as a writer, really, to compete with a guy like. But you know what, that's so weird to me, because one of the Partridge Family songs, and I'm blanking on the name, was number 6 in 1970. It made it to top of the charts. So that was one of the Partridge Family songs that you wrote made it to number 6. It was the top of the charts in 71.
I had one that went to number 1, actually. Doesn't somebody want to be wanted? Yeah, number 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was another one.
So you don't, but that's what are you saying? You don't call yourself a writer? That's a good song.
Well, it's like when Bruce came in, we looked at those songs and we just said, are we kidding ourselves? I can't write another one of those songs. Gag. I cannot do that. And so we didn't. We didn't do it anymore. In fact, David, I was sad for David Cassidy because he vanished too.
Right.
Us guys weren't writing them anymore, and then Tony Romo, who had a bunch of hits with them. I Think I Love You and all those.
Yeah.
He died. He died very, very young. So there was another guy that was working right up at the West Isle offices. It was a terrific time, though. Richard Harris, I'd come up, he'd be lying on the floor. I mean,
no way.
Yeah, like right there. He says, hey, mates, he says, I'll leave if you want. I said, no, stay there. I'm going to tell this guy to get out of my room.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. It was really wonderful.
He and Peter O'Toole, I still to this day go on YouTube and look at them on talk shows, like either just shitting on each other or when they're on at the same time, telling these drunken, fucking
absolutely
debaucherous tales.
Anthony Hopkins and Richard Harris were drinking buddies. And if you hear Anthony Hopkins talk about it, he says, we would drink gasoline. Anything that was liquid, we would drink. It was. I've seen them, in London. I mean, there was a guy in London who was the guy who got blinded by the light for Bruce. He was my English publisher, and he's the one who got blinded by the light covered by Bruce Springsteen and by Manfred Mann.
Yeah, great song.
And when my wife and I would take Adrian Rudge, is his name, he's now deceased, out to dinner when he come to the States, he could have 7 or 8, martinis. I don't know if you've ever had a couple of martinis, but I've seen people have a couple of martinis and start to take their clothes off. I mean, in a restaurant, and they start to take their clothes off. It's like, whoa. So you can't do that. You just can't do that. But people say, what was your background to get into the business, Mike? Well, I started playing in bands, but my mother taught me about Hank Williams Sr. Back in the late 40s, when I was just 6, 7 years old, to listen to those Cheating Hearts and Jambalaya and Crawfish Pie. Your cruel heart, and hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me? all those great songs of Hank Williams and with smart ass lyricists. There's a smart ass lyricist.
Yeah.
And so I got involved in that. But my mother was a singer. She could have been Dinah Shore. Her trainer. She started. And she rehearsed in the Brill Building, the same building I started in. I mean, what's the chance of us living in old Brookville, Long Island, in horse country, right?
Yeah.
And me going into and be my first job in the business is with Hugh and Luigi in the Brill Building, right downstairs from Lieber and Stoller, and all of you name it, they were all in the building in those years. All of them were there, and she's in the building with Ticker Freeman, who was the mentor for Dinah Shore. Just look him up, Ticker Freeman. Look him up.
Will do.
You'll see him. He was the guy that used to introduce her on the show. He used to play on the show. He used to arrange the band,
right,
and all that kind of stuff. So he was.
See, you were born in Flushing, Queens, right?
I was born in Flushing, Queens, but I didn't stay there too long.
You didn't stay there that long. My mom was born in Queens. I was born in Brooklyn, and my grandfather had a beauty salon in Manhattan for a long time, and he used to do Ella Fitzgerald's wigs, like her hair, before shows and shit like that. So it was always one of those things that, like, I loved it. Like, were you ever super starstruck? You know, when for everybody that you work with, was there anybody that ever kind of got you starstruck?
Well, my mother got me starstruck. I'll tell you that. And my father first said to me, you know, your mother. When I was stationed in Manchester, New Hampshire, I could listen to your mother sing with the Walter Wanger Orchestra every single day.
Wow.
And she was on radio. And Walter Wanger, after the war, he's the guy who produced Elizabeth Taylor in Cleopatra. But he during the war years, he had an orchestra. My mother was the lead singer of that orchestra.
Wow.
And so she was a singer. And she sung with the Larry Clinton Orchestra. I saw her sing at the Huntington Crescent Club. My father was the president there at the time. And she sung the Dipsy Doodle, which was a big hit for him. And what the hell's the other? B. Arthur song. Not B. Arthur. What's that song?
Not being able to remember, by the way.
My Reverie.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, this is a Dystopia Tonight curse, by the way. Literally every guest we've had on, we're going to make a montage of this, because every guest, it's either something that they've known literally right up to the point of the show, and they're like, the fuck is my name? They're like, I had it 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is.
You're right. She used to also sing with the Teddy Wilson Trio. The Teddy Wilson Trio used to sing with Billie Holiday. Used to play behind Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong. Wow. You know, I mean, Benny Goodman. And my mother used to sing Satin Doll right up there at the Blue Spruce Inn in Roslyn Harbor.
So you grew up around all those guys?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
So that was what really like kill it. And she gave it all up. She wanted to have a bigger family, which she did.
But like working with like Smokey Robinson and seeing those other guys, though, was it just like a normal day for you, or were you ever like beside yourself?
It was a normal day for me but I was beside myself.
Oh, the same things.
Yeah, it's Sam McKeith was Bruce's agent at William Morris Agency, and he said to me, he says, "Hey, you want to come hang out with me tonight? I'm going to the Apollo Theater. I got to see." Smokey Robinson was another one of his clients. So was Stevie
Wonder.
Wonder, yeah, Stevie Wonder. I always said Stevie Winwood. Yes.
Oh, Steve Winwood's great too, though.
Oh yeah, no question. Great, you're very soulful too.
Yeah.
But I said, yeah, you got it. So I couldn't believe that Smokey starts off with 3 or 4 ballads. So boring. He's got all these hot up-tempo, Too Many Fish in the Sea songs, you know, and he goes and he sings Baby, Baby. And it's so long and boring. But of course, when he went into his great songs, he had so many of them. I mean, God,
sure.
He wrote 3 hits, big hits for the Marvelettes. He wrote hits for everybody. I mean, just so many people he wrote hits for. My God, and for himself too. I mean, I know I can sing the horn lines in his songs. I mean, that's how identifiable the arrangements are, and the horns and the strings. I mean, just great stuff. I mean, Motown is. You know, you got to kneel at the altar of Berry Gordy.
Oh yeah,
really, you really do. I mean, he set up a brilliant operation. The competition was fierce. and they were so damn talented. But Smokey Robinson was, cut above everybody. And when I saw him, he had green eyes, and he was very soft, and he was, just changing his clothes in the after the show, in his room. But he was very, very differential, very nice, and very, very sweet. Bob Marley was he was kind of almost like a little black Bruce Springsteen. I first met him in Max's Kansas City. Bruce was the headliner. He was the opening act.
Wow.
And all night long he's playing this reggae beat. And all of the songs have that little thing. So that's going through my head. and I go upstairs and I'm standing in front of him while he's just about to start his set. And I said, right in front of him, I did that, and he thought that was the funniest thing. I didn't think it was that funny, but actually it was to him. And he was a brilliant little guy, man. And he also danced. He was like free. Like when you see Bruce like sort of lose it, like in a concert, he just goes off somehow on his own tangent, and he's like he says he's a prisoner of rock and roll. Well, he's not lying. That's actually true. He is a prisoner of that thing. Okay.
Right. And
he goes off on it sometimes and just rips. He's by himself. Somebody has to like tap him and say, "Hey, Bruce, come back." And that's what I love. And that's what I see utterly absent in today's musicians. And they've got 17 lawyers and 14 representatives and 16 agents, and nobody can write a song. Can't play a guitar. Nobody can play an instrument. Nobody can do anything.
I know.
And yet they're all fantastic, and their parents tell them they're fantastic, and everything's marvelous.
Yep. And when they win and when they win an award, you see like the list of songwriters it took to write one song with 4 lyrics.
Yeah,
and
I know.
It's like 88 people invited. How the fuck is that possible?
I know. Committee.
Yeah.
It's
insane. It's very manufactured. It really is. Even
really
comedy
is.
To a certain extent gets very manufactured.
You don't get one man or woman. You don't get Joni Mitchell's point of view.
Right.
You don't get, Bob Dylan's point of view.
Right. Because they're all scared of having one.
Yeah, well, I guess that's true too. I guess that is true.
Yeah.
Back in those days, people spoke their mind. And,
I'm telling you, check out Wolf Alice, though. I think you'd really like them.
I've got it. I got Wolf Alice written down. I wrote it down.
I'll send you some stuff too, because they're
terrific.
really great.
Terrific. It'll be absolutely welcome. But my mother was an inspiration, because she could really sing, and not like me. My mother could sing arty melodies. Okay, Mike Appel tries to sing arty melodies, and he sort of fakes his way through it poorly. And songs like Foggy Day in London Town, Frank Sinatra can sing that song, and so can my mother. I cannot sing that song if I listen to it 100 times. I cannot memorize it because it's like what's it all about? Help me. Is it da? What's it all about? That's hard songs to sing, man.
Right.
Those are super melodies by Burt Bacharach and great, lyric writing by Al Davis. Those two guys. What a respect I have for those two guys. Those guys are real songwriters. I mean, absolutely. Of course, Lennon and that's one of my. Somebody said to me, "Mike, do you have any regrets?" I said, "I have 2." John Lennon wanted to speak. Jimmy Iovine calls me one night at my office, and he says to me, "Mike," he says, "I'm producing John Lennon's rock and roll album." I said, "Oh wow, congratulations! I didn't know you got that." "Yeah, I got it, Mike." Blah, 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 blah. I said, "Well, look, congratulations." He said, "Yeah, but he wants to meet the guy that got Bruce on the covers of Time and Newsweek." I said, "Well, that would be me, but not that there weren't other people at the time, but I'm the guy that talked to the senior editors and got the job done at the very end of, that process."
Mm-hmm.
And all I can say is that was one hell of a process, too, to get Bruce to agree. You'd think that like every artist today would be kissing my butt if I told them we were going to try to get you on the covers of Time and Newsweek if they were in operation. And in the same week, and on my birthday, no less, both of those magazines and those covers are dated on October 27th, which is my birthday.
Wow!
So that was the gift to me, having it right on my birthday. It was. Well, I didn't know till I opened up those craft paper stacks,
right,
at a local, newsstand. in L.A. We were staying at the Sunset Marquee, and I ran out at 5, 6 in the morning and got there when the trucks were unloading the newspapers and the magazines. And I had to get a craft, one of those little knives to cut the cord and that craft paper. And when I saw his face on both those covers, I nearly died.
Wow.
I said, God damn it, we did it. Jesus
Yeah.
Christmas, I can't believe it. You know, John Lennon called me up and said, Mike, what's the story? What's the story? You spoke to the senior editors last. What was it? I said, John, I don't know. Okay.
Right.
I just don't. Well, do you have an inkling? Do I have an inkling? I said, yeah, I have an inkling. We could get 1 cover, 2 covers, and no covers. That's the inkling I have. It's one of those 3. And you know, I knew he was dying just as much as me. Hey, man, you know, we're both in this together. Yeah, I'm dying just as much as you are. And then to get them both, I ran back with a stack of those magazines and banged on Bruce's door, and I gave them out to all the band members and everything like that. And then I get a call from Phil Spector, right?
Wow.
I'm in my room, and he says, "Who's this?" I said, "Well, you call me. You ought to know who you called." So he says, "It's Phil Spector." And Mike, Born to Run sounds like Phil Spector. I said, "Well, Phil, that's because we were copying the greatest producer who ever lived." Ooh. And that, you would think that was such butter and bullshit.
Right.
That would have got him. He would have said, "Mike, who you kidding? You know, screw you, okay? You know, who do you think you put?" But no, just the absolute the contrary of that. Okay.
Wow.
He said, "Well, Mike," he said, "I'm glad to hear that." He said, "Is there a chance that Bruce can come out to the house with the band? You know, out to my house in the studio?" And I said, "Yeah, all I need is your telephone number and your address, and maybe we can arrange that. And I'll call you back," which I did, and I arranged. And Bruce came back at the end of the day, and I said, "Hey, Bruce, how'd it go?" He just says, "I never want to see that man again." That's a quote. Okay,
really?
That's what he said, and no elaboration, no nothing. I guess, you know, when Phil's in a room, you know, especially a control room, which is small to begin with, there can't be much oxygen there. I'm sure that Phil sucks it all up. I mean, there's no oxygen for anybody else to speak or even tell you their name.
Sure,
I mean, that guy sucks it all up. But that's the truth. I mean, I couldn't believe it. But I'll never forget, man. That guy is a killer little guy, and in a million ways. You know, if he's in a session, right, and somebody plays a riff, like the beginning of "He's a Rebel."
Yeah.
I forget the piano player who came up with that riff, but Phil said, "Hey, that riff, I want that to start the song off." Boom, boom. He caught that in a second. And he's the one who played on Broadway. He's playing the guitar solo on Broadway. People don't know that this guy, you know, how many things this guy could do. He truly was a tycoon of teens. And I read that original article in the Tribune, the New York Tribune newspaper back in the day when he got that, when he got his first, you know, notoriety, you know, newspaper notoriety.
It's nice to know it's just as hard to get press back then, though, as it is now.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to fucking hear from anybody that doesn't have 1 million TikTok followers now.
Oh yeah, absolutely true. It's a whole. It's like the guys like David Geffen and Clive Davis and Jim Moss and all these guys. Those guys are, you know, Doug Morris. Those guys always were open to guys like me, who were writers and producers and doing it and scuffling it, you know, because they know they sort of came from that too. It wasn't that long ago when they were doing the same damn thing,
and they knew you would produce something good.
Well, they did. They had faith in it, and they would take. I mean, Geffen, you know, took the meeting with me and my attorney Jules Cars at the time, and we played him Bruce Springsteen, but he just signed Jackson Brown. So, you know, it's like just like, you know, he says, "Well, I don't know, Mike, you know." Well, yeah, he just signed Jackson Brown. You're gonna say, "Oh, yeah, I'll take you too." No, he already has his Bruce Springsteen,
right?
And Jackson Brown is a genius. I mean, who has a song like "Doctor My Eyes"?
Oh yeah, of course.
And thinks that that's a pop song, and it was a pop song, and it was a pop hit. Okay, it reached the top 10. I know. I mean, but just to have "Doctor My Eyes," is that your title? Whoa.
Yeah.
Not "I Love You, Baby." No.
Right. Listen,
In
we
any
kept you
case-
for over an hour, but I got 2 more questions for you that we ask every
Sure.
guest. Got time?
Sure.
Sure, great. First question is, if you go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice that would help you today, what would it be?
It would probably be go slower, be more methodical.
Okay.
You know, don't shoot from the hip so quick. Don't be so fast. I mean, some guys can be fast, and it serves them well, and it did serve me well in many respects.
Mhm.
So it's like it's double-edged sword. You can make it. There perhaps I could have made less enemies coming up, but when you had to get Bruce Springsteen across, you had to be in people's face. I used to bust the guys at Columbia Records' face by putting, little flyers in their little, those letter boxes. And when they
Right.
stayed at certain hotels, when we were in town at the same time, they were in town. They were having a thing. They hated my guts. They would love
Yeah.
to just, took my tongue out.
I hear you.
But there was I got him one time. When I finished the song "Born to Run." And Bruce and I went up to Columbia Records and played it for Steve Popovich, who is a good guy, a guy with ears. Even though that day he had 2 phones and one on each ear, he's the quintessential promotion guy.
Right.
And he's talking to all those promo men. And I said to him, "Hey, can you have time to listen to this?" He said, "Yeah, sure." So he listens to it, and Bruce is not there. He stayed in the lobby. He was like too afraid to hear if anybody didn't like Born to Run. Okay?
Sure.
So he didn't trust the situation. So I went upstairs and I said, "What did you think of it?" He said, "Well, I like the guitar riff." I said, "Okay, that's terrific. We start from scratch. Goodbye." and I went down and I told that to Bruce. Bruce was kind of devastated. And then I said, he said, "Well, what do we do now?" I said, "Well, I don't know that right now. But you go back to Asbury Park. I'm going back to the office. And if anything comes up, I'm going to call you and let you know what I'm doing."
Wow.
And I thought about I said, "Well, you know what? Why don't I take this record that I love, and why don't I take it to every disc jockey who's in our back pocket? Because they love us, they come to the shows, and they had the latitude in those days to take a song like that, play it on their radio station, and see what happens."
Mhm.
Well, I said that out to 26 markets, okay?
Wow.
Tertiary, secondary, and primary, okay?
Mhm.
And it went to number 1 on all the stations it was on. And all the kids were calling into the station, and all the kids were going into stores where there wasn't an album. So now
Right.
we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And the problem is that Mike Appel, unbeknownst to all of the brass at CBS, took it upon himself to take a record, which he knows is a no-no. You don't put a record out like this unless the album's in the store. Isn't that correct, Mikey? Don't you know that? Yes, I do. But I did it anyway because you're not listening to me. So, and that's what happened. The top brass called me up, and we had a very, very, very bad conversation. Not that we were screaming and yelling. He was screaming and yelling. I was trying to be very calm because I knew that Bruce's career was at stake, and we were going to be thrown in the street here. So they had the power to do that in a minute. So I said to myself, "Oh, God almighty." When I hung up that phone, I said, "I guess I'm going to get, a letter of release for my contract. And that'll be just wonderful. We can just start it from scratch." So I got lucky because Erwin Siegelstein at another event, and Bruce made this one work, actually. I don't want to take too much of your time. But
No, it's fine.
But it turns out Erwin Siegelstein was a guy who came from the television side of CBS, and now he was going to run the record label. And he wasn't going to let Bruce go into the studio or me go into the studio. He was doing what the last A&R people were doing. And I realized that. But I didn't realize that his son went to Brown University, and I got an interview with Brown University Press paper that Bruce was going to do that very afternoon. And Bruce did his interview. Never badmouths anybody, but he was saying that this guy Erwin Siegelstein doesn't know, and he's keeping me from going into the studio, and my manager's having trouble with him. And so it was devastating to the kid because all his friends, including him, were all Springsteen fanatics. The old man didn't know, so he just singing the same song as the previous administration, and it didn't work. His son got on his ass. And Erwin Siegelstein called me, and he was devastated. Wow. He was butter. I said, "Okay, well then let's get together and get this thing sorted out." He said, "Tomorrow I'll meet you and your attorney and Bruce and Mercurio's." And sure enough, he did. and he buried the axe. We went to do our third album, and that's how that third album came about. Through that kind of pressure,
Right.
me sending the record, and Bruce getting lucky, and the guys. That's what I mean. How about destiny? Do you think there's no destiny in hand here? It is just all happenstance. Just all fell together like by accident, or luck, or something like that. I'm telling you, that ain't the case.
Didn't you also send out bags of coal for Christmas?
Oh, that was earlier in his career, yeah. And when they put out the first album, I had sent a letter out. I said, you guys are not playing Bruce Springsteen, and I've decided that you're going to get coal in your stockings if that continues. Well, it did continue, especially WNW. And I said, okay, I want you to go out to the nearest hardware store and get me a couple of bags of coal, and go into some of these, stocking stuffer stores and whatever, and get me a bunch of, enough for like 40 or 50 of them. And I sent out 40 or 50 to those stations, and I got hate mail back from those guys. They hated me, but I did it. But that's what I mean about me. You have to sometimes, for the artist, you have to do what you got to do. And you can't say, well, I don't want to upset anybody's feelings. What?
No.
Forget about it. You have to interrupt everybody's lives and tell them, who cares about you? Here's what listen to this guy, okay, and shut up. And that's what you have to be. And if you can't do that, you can't do that.
So you were the inspiration for Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It was you.
No, that was all him. He wanted to do it, and he wanted to record it. We recorded it.
That's great.
Post college, but I had two regrets though in my life, basically, and one was that I didn't meet with John Lennon. I interrupted myself there, but to get back to that little quick story, Jimmy Iovine said to me, "Why won't you come over here?" I said, "Because John Lennon has 150 hits. I've played those 150 hits when I was in bands, and I have, I don't know, 3 or 4, 5 or 6, whatever the hell they are. Okay, and I just am too embarrassed to stand in the same room with that guy.
Wow.
I really am." And he sent me a gift. He sent me, Beatles tape live at the Hollywood Bowl as a gift. It was very nice.
Wow.
And if you haven't heard the girls scream, Beatle girls scream, it gives you chills, even if you're not in a stadium. But in any case,
that was a particular point in time. We had Peter Asher on the show, and he was talking about playing with the Beatles and doing that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And those, fangirls at the time. He had told us one story where a girl they were chasing them like out into their limos or whatever, and he had dropped a pair of glasses on the grass, and he ran back to grab his glasses. It was basically like his Buddy Holly glasses. And he turned around, and the girl that was chasing them was kneeling down in the dirt where his glasses fell, and she ate the dirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
How crazy is that?
That shows you just what, hey man, there's no band that can say that. Nobody has that kind of devotion.
Yeah.
That kind of craziness. And the other thing was that I had regrets is I never had a chance to tour Bruce Springsteen in the circus tent that I had always wanted to do in 1976.
Oh.
That because the litigation and all that nonsense, lawyers, all of a sudden lawyers. I said, where were these guys? Where were you guys for the last 4 years? Where were you guys? I don't remember seeing you guys here. I must have missed you. So that was always the thing that was I thought it was going to be great. I had spoken to Mark Brickman about it. We had so much to go on, to do in it. It would have been with Bruce's early songs. It would have been just magnificent. Circus, Circus Boy, Wild Billy Circus song, all that kind of stuff. Would have been great. But hey, didn't happen.
We're gonna do this. One more question. We got what had to end in your life, good or bad, for you to wind up where you are today?
Well, that had to end. That had to end. And what had to start was me finding out that I was as good, just about as good as any of them.
Yeah.
Especially the lyrics. And I can't write melodies like Paul McCartney, that's for sure. But
but who can?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Burt Bacharach can.
That's a hard. Yeah, that's
true. There's no question about it. That's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
But I had to find myself after that, and I did find myself, but it took a long time because I took on a very big project. This musical took a lot out of me. But these next year or two is gonna see a lot of my things come to fruition because it's my time, my turn now.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely, man. That's awesome, and I feel like a lot of us felt like that coming out of this, this time that we had to reflect over the pandemic and stuff like that too. So it's nice. Listen, it was a blast having you on the show. I loved getting to meet you and talk to you.
Likewise.
You got to come back again, man, because I feel like you just have a ton more stories and stuff.
I do have a lot of stories.
Yeah,
I'm a professional windbag. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Dude, I got actually one more question before you go, real quick. Out of those 3 albums, on Springsteen, what are your favorite songs off of each album?
Well, Thunder Road is really my favorite song off of the Born to Run album. I mean, it's a very, very difficult to pick off of them. A Mary Queen of Arkansas is kind of an oddball song off the first one. Okay. And I like E Street Shuffle off the second one.
Yeah.
But there's no songs on any of those albums I don't like. Not one.
Right.
I may like them for different reasons. But other than that, I like every one of those damn things, and it's very, very difficult to pick which I like more. I love the graduation gown, lies and rags at your feet. I mean, some of those lyrics in that song, the dusty beach road, the burnt out Chevrolets, it's just stuff like it's so gosh damn Americana. It's so us. It's so us. It's so Jersey. It's so beach Jersey. And you guys, especially you guys from Jersey, you can't get away from it.
No, we cannot.
No, you cannot. No, you're there.
They don't. It's a law. They don't let you. No, if you live here,
it is. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And what can I say? He hit the nail on the head there. It was just such an extraordinary song.
I swear to God, this happened to me more than once going into Asbury Park. Because when I started out doing stand-up, I used to do gigs in Asbury. It's just a great place to either do music or if you're a comedian, to go work out material or do whatever. It's just a great, artist-driven, town. But I swear to God, every time I drove into Asbury, my iPod that had like 4,000 songs on it would automatically play a Bruce Springsteen song. And I was like, is there a radio signal going out? And they say, is this legally required to do it? Not that I would complain, but I would be like, this is too weird. But it happened to me definitely more than once.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's not just happenstance either.
Yeah, exactly, man. But it was a blast talking to you, dude. So I hope we get to do it again soon.
Yes, we will.
And what was your website again, real quick? Plug that.
MikeAppel.com.
MikeAppel.com. We'll make sure everybody gets there, dude. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll be looking forward to that movie, too. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Cheers.
And so many great stories. Can't wait till the next one. Cheers.
Take care, man.
Dystopia tonight.